Okay, in this section we're going to be looking at phase change, which is 6E. So we'll get right into it. Matter, as you know from previous science classes, can exist as a solid, a liquid, or gas. And when that matter gains or loses enough thermal energy, it's going to go through a phase change. So again, there's three forms of matter. When you have a large enough gain or large enough loss of thermal energy, you're going to see a phase change happen. So we'll go through the phase changes for each of the three forms of matter. So for solids, they're going to have the least amount of thermal energy. They have a pretty definitive shape, solid. When solids gain enough thermal energy, they're going to form liquids. So you're all familiar with this. This is called melting. So again, when they gain enough thermal energy, they're going to form liquids. And then you're also going to get the second phase change that can happen with solids is there's some substances that are going to skip the liquid stage completely. So there's some solids that are going to go directly from solid to a gas. So they would go directly from a solid to a gas. And that's called sublimation. So not super common, but it does happen sometimes. So it's sublimation. Again, when some solids go from liquid, or some solids go directly from that solid state to a gas. Okay, the next form of matter is liquids. They're going to have more thermal energy than solids. So liquids have more thermal energy than solids, and they have less of kind of a definitive shape. Right? They move around a little bit more. They change the way they look depending on their container. So the first phase change with liquids is if they gain enough energy, they're going to form gases. So that process going from liquid to the gas phase is going to be called evaporation. I'm sure you've heard of that before. And then the other phase change is when they lose enough energy, they're going to form solids. So again, if they lose enough energy, they're going to form a solid. So you're going to call that freezing. Again, I'm sure you've heard that term as well. Freezing. Okay, the last phase of matter, gases, they have the most thermal energy. They have more thermal energy than solids or liquids. They have really not a definitive shape at all. They can kind of be compressed, so you can put them in a smaller container than they originally were. The gases, so again, most energy, least definitive shape. So when they lose enough energy, they're going to form liquids, and that's going to be called condensation. Condensation. And then some gases are going to skip the liquid stage completely, and they're going to form solids. So there's some gases that, based on their chemical properties, will actually go from that gas phase, and then they'll form directly into a solid. That's called deposition. Deposition. So those are the phase changes, the two phase changes for each form of matter. The last thing to remember about phase change is the phase change of an object affects its surroundings. So what's going to happen if you have basically to have a phase change, you need to either gain or lose heat, and that's going to affect what the substance is surrounding. So for example, if you boil water, right? If you take water and then you apply enough heat, or it turns into a gas, what has to happen is it has to take heat from somewhere, basically. So for, again, water to boil, to go from a liquid to a gas, you need heat from somewhere. So it's going to cool its surroundings. So again, it could be, a stovetop or whatever it's touching is going to lose heat because that heat's being sucked into the liquid so that it can evaporate. Okay, and the other thing to remember is, the opposite's true. So if you have liquid water, and it freezes, So again, if you're going from a liquid to a solid, for that to happen, you have to lose heat, basically. So you have to lose heat for it to go to a solid. You have to lose thermal energy. There has to be a heat loss to form a solid. So if you have heat loss because of a phase change like this, it's actually going to warm its surroundings. So again, whatever's around the water is actually going to get a little bit warmer because that water is losing heat to form a solid. So again, sometimes this is a little counterintuitive, but whatever direction the heat's, basically the heat to, cause a phase change has to come from somewhere, and that's going to have an effect on the surroundings. So that it'll either cool the surroundings, it'll warm them. It depends on what substance you're dealing with, basically, what phase change. Okay, so that's really all the notes. Just, the three phases of matter and their phase changes, and that there's some heating and cooling to be aware of. So that's all the notes. We'll do a problem with this, the last part. Okay, so with this problem, make sure that you attempt it first. You're attempting the problem. Okay, alright, so now we'll see the solution out for this. So for each of the following situations, it's saying identify what the phase change is, and then whether the temperature of the surroundings is gonna increase or decrease. So two things: what's the phase change? What's gonna happen to the surroundings? So not 1A, you have steam from a shower forms water droplets in a mirror. So you have steam, it's forming water droplets. So you have a gas forming a liquid. So that is called condensation. And what will happen to surroundings? We got to think about what's happening to the heat flow. So if you have a vapor or a gas, same thing, to a liquid, you must have had to lose heat. So if you had to lose heat, you're going to increase the temperature of the surroundings. So again, because you had to lose heat, you're going to increase the temperature of the surroundings. B, cream and flavorings turn into ice cream in a freezer. So basically what you have is a liquid going to a solid. For that to happen, again, it's kind of the same idea. You have to lose heat. So this process is freezing. Again, not too difficult. And what you have, because you need to get energy out of that, the cream and the flavorings to get it to solidify, you're gonna have an actual increase in temperature of the surroundings. All right, and the last one, you have frozen carbon dioxide, so that'd be a solid, turns directly to a gas at room temperature. This is actually called dry ice, frozen carbon dioxide. So this is the phase change. This is called sublimation. This is an example of sublimation. And what happens in this scenario, basically, if you have something solid going to a gas, for that to happen, you need an increase in thermal energy. So it's pulling thermal energy from the surroundings. So whatever's surrounding that dry ice is actually going to decrease in temperature. Okay, that's about it. Just make sure you have everything down, both the problem and the notes.